Welcome to Mayor Brown's International Arbitration Across the Pond podcast. Each episode is designed to provide insight on legal issues and other matters affecting international arbitration in the UK, US and around the world. The podcast is presented by two of Mayor Brown's international arbitration partners, Kwadwo Sarkodie from the firm's London office and Charles Harris from the firm's Chicago office. You can subscribe to this podcast on all major podcasting platforms, as well as Mayor Brown's YouTube channel. We hope you enjoy the podcast.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon and good morning, and welcome to our podcast, Across the Pond International Arbitration. We actually have a bunch of special guests today, but before I go to them, I just want to mention a few things. First of all, this is our first time with in-house counsel on the episode, on the podcast. And this is also our first time bringing one of our colleagues on the podcast. So let me turn over to Kwadwo just to say a quick hello.
Hi there, Chucky. Thanks so much. And yes, very excited, that we've wrapped up 10 of these already, but more than that, to have our guests and a colleague on as well. I think this is going to be a fantastic episode.
I agree. So one of the things that we've been doing our last several episodes, and it's become kind of a staple of the podcast. So I'm telling our guests this for the first time, is that we do our name reveal. So I thought about this last night a little bit, and I actually don't have like as snappy a name for this one as I have for the last ones, but I think we'll call this one International Arbitration from the Inside. So hopefully you guys like that. I can be vetoed, but anyway, that's the name reveal. We'll figure it out later. How do you like that, Kwadwo?
Fantastic name.
Fantastic.
As long as our guests are happy, I think it's great.
Yeah, okay. All right, well, that's a good segue to turn it over to our guest. Let me first turn it over to you, Adili, to introduce yourself.
Sure, I guess I'm the insider, right, Chucky?
Yes, absolutely. First insider.
First insider. Yes, my name is Adili Kabaita. I'm the general counsel for MEGI, that's Mobil Equatorial Guinea Incorporated. It's an affiliate of Exxon Mobil. I'm here in Malabo, that's capital of Equatorial Guinea. It's an interesting country because you have a mainland part and an island part. And I'm situated in the island part, in the island of Bioko. It's a gorgeous island, actually, and been here about 3 years. Moved here from Houston, so I've been enjoying it and learning a lot about the culture, the people, and oil and gas law, which we'll get into more in depth later. But been enjoying my assignment here as an expat, and look forward to talking about my experience in international arbitration. So I'll pass it on to my colleague, Shannon.
Thank you. Shannon?
Hi, I'm Shannon Leitner. I am an employee in an attorney in the International Disputes Group of Exxon Mobil Corporation, based in Houston. Prior to joining Exxon Mobil, I was an associate in an international law firm and based in New York, doing a lot of international arbitration and international litigation. Okay,
so do you have a view on which side is better yet? Can you talk about that?
Well, I mean, certainly the paychecks are better on the other side, but the work-life balance is much better on this side. So.
Okay, all right. So let me turn it over next. Thank you guys, first of all. So those are our two insiders. And let me go to my Mayor Brown colleague, my partner, Francisco, who I've actually gotten to know probably over the last couple of years. It's been my pleasure to get to know him. So Francisco, why don't you introduce yourself?
Thank you very much, Chucky. And in here, I would say that I'm between both. I did 20 years with Exxon Mobil, and now it's been 6 years with here with Mayor Brown. It's great. It's a pleasure to be in both sides, I should say. As Shannon was saying, maybe it's better on the other one, the paycheck. Well, I tend to say, I have to say that I think it's great on both sides. You have to be where you want to be. And thanks for
Always the politician.
Right. So we now know that work-life balance is important to Shannon.
Interesting enough, when Shannon said work-life balance, I felt a little sad because Shannon was actually my outside counsel.
Right.
So sorry about that, Shannon.
You saw the bills, Adili. You knew how many hours were going in.
Right. Well, look, that's actually a great segue into the first topic we wanted to talk about. Of course, as we said, this is our first time having inside in-house counsel on our podcast. So the one thing people want to know is, okay, what is it like from the inside? How is your legal department set up? How are you managing international arbitration? And I think that's helpful for us as outside counsel, but it's also helpful for our listeners who are also in-house counsel to kind of benchmark and understand kind of how others are doing it. So let me start by just asking either Adili or Shannon to just tell us a little bit about the structure of your legal department.
Sure, I'll kick off. This is Adili. I think with Exxon Mobil, we try to mirror our organizational structure to match our clients in structure, but also in needs. So what that looks like is we have commercial lawyers, so to speak, who support kind of the business, whether that's someone like myself who is embedded with the affiliate, and my clients are the actual, business line, from folks who are in finance to folks who are engineers, to those who are supporting the offices in Houston or Irving, where they support specific departments, whether that's upstream or downstream. So we try to mirror our client organization, but also we have subject matter experts, those in compliance or our international disputes group like Shannon. And Shannon can talk more specifically about her role and her expertise.
Yeah, so in our international disputes group, we handle pretty much international arbitrations around the world. And we come in, as Adili talks about, like in conjunction with the commercial lawyer who knows the business very well, but we come in with more of a subject matter expertise about arbitration and international law to make sure that process runs smoothly and that we're spotting all issues and getting the right counsel in place and everything to that end. And then we also have tax experts and there are other specialized groups besides just us in international disputes.
So sticking with you, Shannon, on the international disputes. So we're talking about international arbitration on this podcast. So just focusing on international arbitration, how do you manage those internally?
Yeah, so we have a small group. So there's 3 of us who are really subject matter experts. And when there's, an arbitration that seems like it might be brewing, we get called in, usually at very early stages to help, make sure that, we're building the correct record, that we're getting outside counsel in at the right time, that we're not, passing any sort of fork in the road and picking a local court instead of, and therefore waiving our right to arbitrate. And then, one of the 3 of us will be sort of assigned to the case and just help make sure that everything runs smoothly and bring expertise in terms of, various arbitral rules, various fora, all of that, help selecting arbitrators, all of that fun stuff, should the dispute progress to the point that we actually commence an arbitration. But we certainly get pulled in very early on just to try and figure out if it's actually one that we want to arbitrate or not, or if there's a way to avoid arbitration in the first place.
Chucky, that's a sophisticated way of saying Adili calls Shannon and says, please help me. I think I messed up.
Is there what I was going to ask you, Adili, are there any rules of thumb of when the commercial lawyers kind of get involved? How early are you bringing in the dispute group? Or are you saying, okay, looks like this might become a dispute, and I'm going to give Shannon a call. Like, how do you make that determination of when to bring the group in?
Sure. I try to bring her on, or any one of my colleagues on as soon as I have a feeling that that there is an actual disagreement, I would say. So, for example, an issue between a sovereign and ourselves, specific to one of our contracts that's been ongoing, that doesn't seem to be one that's going to be amicably settled. So if we've had ongoing conversations with government officials, I feel that things aren't just progressing in a kind of ordinary course of business. I give a heads up, either email or set up a call with Shannon and say, I'm not sure about this one. What do you think? And we'll kind of strategize on next steps and what exactly we should start doing, from documents to strategies to amicably settle the disagreement, I would characterize.
So it's very interesting to hear that point, Adili, and particularly on the strategizing. What I'd be interested to hear is whether the involvement of external counsel comes at that strategizing stage, or whether that is slightly later on, once Shannon has set out the steps that you're going to be taking.
Sure. I mean, for me personally, it's later on. After we consult, there could be an issue that is of maybe that needs to be further expanded, a specific legal issue that needs some research, or there's a relationship that Shannon has with outside counsel that has specific knowledge or experience in that field. I could see us maybe engaging outside counsel, but ordinarily that would come later.
Yeah, and I
What
think
do you think, Shannon?
Yeah, I think it depends on the dispute. Certainly there's plenty of stuff that we do early on just in-house. But, part of what my team brings, right, is the sort of feeling of when we might really need, an issue dug into and some real advice from outside counsel in terms of whether there's a viable claim and, if there's any, things we really, landmines we need to avoid as, a dispute is sort of percolating. And even as, Adili talks about, we're trying to resolve it amicably, what things we need to keep in mind so that we're not prejudicing an arbitration position later. But it really depends on the dispute and how serious it is and how early. Certainly when somebody like Adili who gets us involved very early, but we tend to go a while before we need outside counsel, but sometimes, commercial lawyers don't quite realize the problem until it's a little bit further along the road than we would always like.
So in relation to instances, specifically in the jurisdictions which you cover, Adili, when you have to seek the input of local legal counsel in respect of specific local legal issues, do you do that alongside international counsel, or would you tend to do that separately?
In my experience, usually separately. It definitely depends on the type of matter. So if it touches on something larger regarding, for instance, our PSC, our production sharing contract, that involves the state of EG, state oil companies, that it reaches beyond just a local issue, then I might involve outside counsel with the advice of someone like Shannon. But if it's more localized, then yes, I would probably just engage local counsel.
Yeah, I think that's right, especially, I think dollar amount at stake, and also as Adili flags, the sovereign issue. Anytime that we're having disagreements with the sovereign, that's tends to get a call to myself or one of my colleagues in international disputes, whereas purely local issues, especially with other private counterparties, for example, or labor law, stuff like that, that tends to stay more at the local level.
Exactly.
So we talked a lot with you about kind of when you bring in an external counsel, outside counsel, just generally, and I know this is a broad question, but particularly in international arbitration, what are your expectations of outside counsel? What are the most important things to you? Trying to educate us on that, if you would.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll start, ideally, if you don't mind, but I think the most important thing, right, is we're looking for the right attorneys for the dispute, right? So we're looking for, people who are familiar with the subject matter, people who are familiar with the jurisdiction, and people who we know can deliver results. And that could be a win in arbitration, that could be the amicable settlement that we want. It really varies based on dispute, but we're really looking to sort of match up jurisdiction and business understanding. And then beyond that, we're looking for people who can communicate effectively, especially across cultural lines, which can always be a challenge in international arbitration. We are in I think we're all aware of what's going on in the global economy at the moment. So cost is always a concern as well. We're not gonna bring in the most expensive guns for a relatively small dollar dispute. So making sure that the potential risk is lined up with what we expect we'd be spending on outside counsel costs. So those are some of them. I don't know, Adelia, if you have anything else to add.
Sure. I think we touched upon kind of the relationship between international counsel and local counsel. So those outside counsel who have good relationship with local counsel in the region or the country, that really provides a benefit and an advantage, those relationships. And then I think relationship with experts as well. So that's all important to us.
So Shannon, you touched on cost, and yeah, certainly we appreciate how important and how critical those considerations are. And what we were really interested in is how you go about cost budgeting and management, and where you see the input and role of external counsel, and obviously feeding into that and supporting you effectively.
Yeah, so I mean, I think the key pillar to it really is open communication and having that open dialogue. Nobody likes to get hit with a huge bill from outside counsel that they had no idea was coming. We ask for a lot of estimates and budgets. One thing that we've been doing a lot more of lately is sort of getting phased flat fees. So we'll have an arrangement where, you pay for sort of phase one, like, pre-dispute advice for, a certain cost, or even not even flat fees necessarily, but a cap, right? That there'll be a budgetary cap for just, pre-dispute advice. And then as you progress through the arbitration process, there are additional phases with additional caps. And that just helps make sure that everyone's aligned. And certainly, sometimes something happens in arbitration, a curveball comes through, and then you have a conversation with your outside counsel about, why the cap needs to be exceeded and why, the costs are so much higher than were anticipated. That's definitely happened. We're not unreasonable, but certainly we're mindful of trying to keep things under control. And the other thing that we like to see a lot is, we pay very close attention to how our teams are structured at the outside counsel level, and making sure that we're not too top heavy, that we have a strong associate team and that work is being pushed down appropriately to more junior attorneys, which is good both for building the next generation of practitioners, as well as ensuring that we're not overpaying for what is relatively straightforward work, and we're saving the partner hours for the more serious, more critical work.
Perhaps it's more kind of avoiding surprises, being effective, avoiding surprises for management.
Yep.
Absolutely. That can't be emphasized enough. No one likes surprises.
Okay, so why don't we switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit about arbitration clauses, institutions, arbitral institutions, and arbitrators. So does the International Dispute Group, or do you actually draft, and this question for Shannon, are you involved in drafting your arbitration agreements, your international arbitration agreements? How does that work?
Sometimes we are, sometimes we're not. It really varies based on the jurisdiction and the contract. Again, as Adili sort of flagged at the beginning, when we're dealing with sovereigns, we tend to be a bit more involved than, just a relatively small contract with another commercial counterparty that we're a little less involved in. So,
is it another situation where you have to kind of rely on your commercial and functional lawyers to get you involved in that process?
Yeah, absolutely. And, some of it, we hear about, especially again at the sovereign level, we'll tend to know just from working in jurisdictions and being aware of current events that, there's a big negotiation going on around X or Y. But for the most part, the commercial lawyers loop us in to take a look at arbitration clauses.
Okay, so following up on that point, there's been a lot of movement, or a lot, I'll say it like this, there've been a lot of revisions to the arbitration rules of arbitrable institutions. And a lot of it is related to COVID-19 and the move to remote hearings. But is there anything that you've seen that you have thought is particularly interesting, or something that's kind of piqued your interest? And I think this is probably more so a question for you, Shannon, than Adili.
Sure, you don't want this one, Adili?
Definitely. I know my role.
Yeah, so I completely agree, Chucky. We've seen a lot of, recent revisions to try and go more remote in hearings and accommodate the lack of travel that the pandemic has imposed upon all of us. And especially we international arbitrators are known for liking to hop on an airplane and go to the next cool location for a hearing. But I definitely think we have seen this move to both go more remote, but also increase transparency. And, there are pros and cons to both of those. Like we certainly, the cost saving is huge to the remote hearings, but there are a lot of technical issues that come with that. Zoom fatigue, there are concerns about, having whether your witness is being coached or what else is happening on the screen that you can't see. And one particular challenge that we faced a lot lately is just time zone differences. The benefit of putting everyone in the same city is you all get on the same time zone, as opposed to having someone in Asia and someone in the US and someone in Europe, and no matter what, somebody is extremely inconvenienced with the time zone. And during COVID, I had a trial in Nigeria where I was the trial was starting at 2:00 in the morning for me, and that was a bit rough of a wake up call, but we got through it. But
well, we got to find out more about how you work that out. But I'm gonna Kwadwo is gonna get that. I don't want to steal his thunder on that. Yeah. But before we do though, I want to ask you about the last point I want to ask you about is arbitrators, and kind of what the key factors are that so we've talked about outside counsel, but what are the key factors that you're looking for in your arbitrators when you're picking arbitrators for your disputes?
So similar to outside counsel, we're looking for arbitrators that have the right expertise, right? Like we're looking for subject matter expertise and also just familiarity with the jurisdiction. That's definitely the most important issue for us, right? Is do we have the right person with the right expertise? We obviously are concerned with a lot of other issues as well. We are looking to bring in more diverse candidates. We're looking to bring in younger candidates at times as well. Nobody wants an arbitrator who is dozing off through the proceeding, so we're always cognizant of those things, of finding the right person. But at the end of the day, what we're looking for is making sure that it's somebody with the subject matter expertise and familiarity with the jurisdiction.
So it's kind of the process when you're relying, and this is interesting to me because of course I'm an arbitrator as well as a practitioner, and one of the things that I often face is, I was just talking to somebody about this the other day. I'm on a list of 10 people, but I'm the youngest person on the list, and there's everybody else is been practicing 35 years, and how is there really an opportunity to be picked for a panel? So when you are looking for kind of younger arbitrators, and you talked about that a little bit, like what are the drivers? What'll make you pick somebody who's kind of young and up and coming, as opposed to kind of the typical international arbitrator who's been doing it for 30 years?
Yeah, I mean, I think again, it's about finding the right person for the dispute. And so I think it's about finding, especially with the, with younger arbitrators in particular, like finding somebody who clearly knows the subject matter, being in a position where you're trying to make your name and make your reputation can actually be a benefit, right? Because that shows you're going to be committed to the arbitration. You're going to have time for it. Like your docket's generally going to be smaller than some of those practitioners that you're thinking of, those arbitrators who do it for 30 years and are on, 500 disputes at once, or I don't know how big their dockets are, but you get my point that
Yeah, I get it.
They're popular. And so those are things that we would look to and would factor in in favor of a younger candidate, somebody trying to make their name and therefore be more dedicated to resolving our dispute quickly and coming to the right decision.
Well, that's good to hear. Kwadwo?
Yeah, so really interested to hear some of your views and takes about how your work in international arbitration has been impacted by the pandemic. And I think Chucky will confirm, we started this podcast series just as the impacts of the pandemic were taking effect, and we've had some mention of pandemic related issues and remote hearings on many of our episodes, but it's always good and interesting to hear fresh perspectives. And it was particularly interesting to hear from you about the difficulties and the challenges posed by the different time zones, and you having to be alert and concentrating at 2 a.m. and so on. Now, one idea we've seen in circulation in international arbitration is a proposal called asynchronous participation. I was just interested when I heard you mention the difficulties about time zones, how you thought this might be relevant, and just sort of explain the background to it. This is sort of the idea that sections of hearings could effectively be pre-recorded and presented, so that all the parties don't need to be participating all at the same time in order to make the hearing happen. Now, I imagine that wouldn't do away with hearings altogether, and there would still be elements where everybody is present, but perhaps to break down elements of that so that different sections can be done at different times. So I've heard this being proposed. I've heard examples and comparisons, by reference to the fact that submissions are put in sequentially anyway. It is something that people can get used to. It can allow elements to be pre-recorded, looked at, re-looked at the leisure of the tribunal. But I was just interested to hear your take. What do you think about that? Is that a way forward, or is it just a crazy idea?
So I confess that I hadn't heard of it till you brought it up, actually. So it's not something that I've actually seen in any of my arbitrations, or I'm pretty sure none of my colleagues as well. They certainly haven't mentioned it. So it's interesting, and I should be clear too, I'm speaking on my own behalf, not on behalf of Exxon Mobil, but it's an interesting idea. There are definitely concerns and questions that raises in terms of, the ability for questions from arbitrators. And I feel like, one of the things you do lose in a remote hearing, right, is the informal body language that you get when you're in the hearing room and you're able to observe how certain points are landing on arbitrators and even opposing counsel and opposing witnesses, opposing parties. And so there's a piece of me that's a little concerned of losing even more of that flavor, right, by not even being on a Zoom together. But at the same rate, do I really need to be up at 2 o'clock in the morning for, closing argument? I don't know, maybe there's something there. But it's definitely an interesting idea. I haven't seen it in practice yet.
We hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you have any suggestions for topics or want to reach Kwadwo Sarkodie or Charles Harris, you can find them at the Mayor Brown website, mayorbrown.com. Also, to learn more about other Mayor Brown audio programs, please visit mayorbrown.com/podcasts. Thank you for listening.